This is the $1 million slide. The truth is we have to work together, and it starts with you. You have to know what you're looking for.
The reason why you're all here, and the reason why we're all here is to talk about AI, and AI, particularly in the context of market research and competitive insights. What I wanted to set the agenda about too is the scope is why we're here is to talk about how we use it to achieve marketing. We're not going to talk about text to video. We're going to talk about how we have used AI on several projects, market research, to do always on market research, something that used to be incredibly difficult to do. So moving on to that, who we're for today, anybody, really anybody with a deep understanding of AI to drive insights. We come from a marketing background. I spent 15 years at agencies ranging from direct response agencies, creative agencies, digital agencies, advertising and marketing. So our context, the scope of this conversation is how we've used AI to do market and landscape research in the context of marketing, but it can be applied. We've also applied it to product launches and product research, as well as CX and US research. So that's really what the scope is, what we're here to talk about and our background. And that's why we're here. And one of the things that brought us down this journey, Francis and I, to this point, just one quick more minute about us, is that we have a background that cross-sections operations, CX, UX, marketing, and research. And one of the things, the brilliant things that's happened in the last year is with the explosion of AI, from our point of view, the explosion of AI isn't necessarily an explosion of AI's capability. It's an explosion of accessibility. It's an explosion of access. 3-4 years ago, agencies that I was working with, they used to pay upwards of $100,000 a month to have access to, IBM's, Watson's, and such like that. The same things that we pay $20 a month for today. So what really has happened is it has just allowed startups, boutique agencies like Francis and myself, mom and pop shops to have the same capabilities as what used to be, particularly the domain of Procter & Gamble, Unilever, and the big companies. And that's really, really why we're putting this on is partially just because we have worked for the big corporations for a long time. We've changed our focus. We started our own boutique agency focused on smaller companies and helping out startups. And part of it is we do have just a general desire to see the playing field leveled out some. And here is just starting out with two of our favorite quotes about AI. Some people call this artificial intelligence, but the reality is this technology will enhance us. So instead of artificial intelligence, think of it as augment our intelligence. And this is from the guy who he doesn't get any credit, but he was the guy who pushed IBM with one of the first consumer-facing AIs that was reliable, that worked at Watson, that worked at a level of 6 years ago. And we love this quote, and we think this quote sums up market intelligence and research. It's not there to do it for us. It's there to augment us. And then just one more is artificial intelligence is not a substitute for human intelligence. It's a tool to amplify creativity and ingenuity. And this is done by one of the directors of Stanford for their AI program. And why we bring this one up is this is a theme that we have through all of our work and through this talk is that AI, it's a lot like the old saying about, you are what you eat. AI is what you put into it. AI is the context that you create for it. AI is how you work with it and how you nurture it. And AI there's a direct relationship to how inquisitive you are, how creative you are, and how much you want to try to find the answers to the quality of the response that AI gives you. And like I said, AI is a revolution in accessibility and capability for research, but it's not a change in methodology. This is a problem. I just want to bring this up front. This is something that we see over and over again. People think that they can just ask a question to ChatGPT, Claude, any of them out there, and that it'll give them the answer that they can trust, and it is the answer to the research. It is not. Research, there is a methodology to research. You need to follow a methodology to make sure that what you get out of ChatGPT or Claude or any AI has integrity, is the right research that gives you the insights to drive whatever purpose you're doing the research for. But there's no question about it. It also lowers the bar on accessibility and allows you to do things that you couldn't do a year ago. Before I go on to this next slide, which just, once again, these are all setup slides. These are all just giving the context. You know, these are the things that we're currently doing. Automated data collection, sentiment analysis. Sentiment analysis through AI is a game changer for us, at least. Anybody else out there trying to do a sentiment analysis right now? Everybody should look into trying to do it. Sentiment analysis with AI is quite literally training an AI to look across a dozen different review sites, to look across your competitors' reviews in Amazon, to look at, if you're a SaaS company, to look across Trust Radius and G2 and say, hey, what are the people saying about my product versus the competitors? What is the sentiment rating? How many positive versus negative reviews? What are the, what's the review cloud look like? What's the word cloud look like for reviews? What are they talking about? This is one of the biggest untapped potentials that we see in market research for AI that makes it incredibly simple and that very, very few people are doing. And then the other item that AI is really just taken off on is predictive analytics. And it has become really great at letting you know, if you know how to ask it the right questions, on what are the upcoming trends. What are the things that at least we should be considering? What are the things that should be asked in the room about what may impact us a year from now? So the people I'm with, the clients we have, the company you're with does have all the knowledge needed and all the insights needed just to make strategic decisions. Once again, predictive insights, 3 years ago, you had to hire a Bain or a McKinsey or an Accenture to do what you can do now with a smaller group of people who have more intimate knowledge of your organization. And before we get more into the details, I want to bring up, these are the disadvantages of AI in marketing research. Hallucinations and poison data. Hallucinations are actually becoming a little bit worse. Who knows, is everybody aware of what happened last week with ChatGPT? For 2 days, ChatGPT, for a lot of people, just literally pumped out gibberish for 2 days. OpenAI doesn't know why. It wasn't even incorrect answers. It was literally as if a 3-year-old was talking. For a lot of people and a lot of services, it was almost unusable for 2 days. And no one knows why, and it corrected itself. So you have that extreme form of hallucinations, and you have lesser forms of hallucinations. And now you also have a problem emerging called poison data. Poison data is a tactic right now that a lot of companies are using. And basically what it means is, let's pump out 5,000 pages of blogs and articles and comments on LinkedIn and posts on LinkedIn and on Reddit, talking about a subject that we want to control and we want to change the narrative on. This can be a slight narrative that, hey, Coke tastes better than Pepsi, or they're starting to see it pop up a lot in this election cycle of people just talking trash about other candidates. And they're producing data, producing content across every channel at mass scale to try to alter AI. This is a problem that they're fighting against. They're not quite sure how they're going to do it. It hasn't reached a critical mass yet. They're concerned that if it's not stopped, it'll reach a critical mass in 2 years. And it's called poison data. Lacking context. AI has no context. The job of a researcher in the new research role is primarily to create the context. If you ask AI, what is the best soft drink in the US, it'll simply say, hey, here's the amount of soft drink sold in these different regions, but that doesn't tell you what people think is the best. If you create the context and say, hey, from a sentiment perspective, what percentage of people in the US over the age of 50 believe what soft drink is the best and what is their general reactions to it, you have just created a lot more context and you'll get richer answers. So AI in of itself is lacking context, and a lot of people just fail to understand that and fail to develop their prompts, fail to develop their research in a way that creates that context. The last two this is a real problem too, is AI we're seeing is causing a loss of institutional knowledge. This doesn't have to happen, but this is just people who are, if you get too concerned about the insights in the output as opposed to everything that you can learn along the way. And it also is meaning that people aren't capturing that input anymore. It used to be that a major part of a marketing study and a major part of marketing research was creating what we called a marketing Bible or a research Bible, which was a collection of all of the small insights that you gained. So they were there for you, that they were there to be passed around an organization. That's starting to be lost. It's important to make sure that everything that you do in a ChatGPT or an AI workflow is captured so you don't lose that. And then what I think is the most important is the journey of research creates insights in and of itself. The negatives, the things that you said, hey, that's a weird item, not really relevant to me, but I'm going to remember that. You run the risk of losing the insights that journey creates. And that's one of the reasons why we recommend, even if you're able to ask an AI, ask a ChatGPT or ask Claude a very specific question and get an answer that fits your need, to ask it several more questions, to just poke around it and to develop a little bit of that journey. Because if it isn't for those insights along the journey, that's how a lot of small companies were created. That's how Red Bull that was one of the keys that made Red Bull explode, was the insights that they got around research journeys. So developing those is very important. So those are the disadvantages of AI in marketing.
I think all large language models are trying to guard against that in their safety efforts, put guardrails up and stuff like that. But I can still create 500 blogs and do it in less than 30 minutes and have them all posted tomorrow. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what? How can you stop it? You just have to hope that the good gets through the bad, I guess. I don't know.
That, and that's what we're just about to jump into, starting with this slide, is you can guard against that by having some loose methodologies, some practices, that way that you do it, so you can get different points of views out of the AI to see if one of them just looks that much out of whack, that much out there. And
Okay.
it's really applying some best practices that have always been around in research, just in a new context, in a slightly new way. And it safeguards you against that. You know, on the top level, you know, we do research projects all the time. We just finished a research project for a SaaS product that wanted to enter into a new country. And so we had to do deep sentiment analysis and product comparisons for regulatory. This was going to be submitted to the government to ensure that they were approved and that they had a market fit. So how we apply to this in all of our projects is we don't use one AI. We use two different AIs and measure them against each other to control for the quality and hallucinations. If we see one AI, if we're looking at, you know, a topic such as, I don't know, any topic, if we're looking at who's the best soft drinks, and if we see one AI that is always answering very skewed in a way, that lets us know, look, this AI is over indexing some poison content, or this AI over indexed a certain area of content. You know, so we always use two AIs to balance each other. And then we always have one person at least doing light, if not more, research along the same path on a parallel journey. So if we're asking the AI, you know, and we're getting clients paying us, for example, of what's the best soft drink, what's the most favorite soft drink in the US, and we're going down that path with the AI, we'll stop and we'll do the journey, and we'll do some straight up light research on our own, just to ensure, just to validate, and just to benchmark that where we're going down the path is right. Because that creates, you know, balanced insights that can be analyzed then by the person. And the second advantage of that person on going down the path with you, the second advantage of that is when it comes time to analyze, you're not doing a cold analysis. You're warmed up, you're more familiar with the data. It'll generate some ideas. It'll help you have different perspectives, as opposed to if you're just taking what AI outputs and looks at it cold. That's a hard point to analyze from. Even for like a very seasoned researcher, that's hard to do. This just outlines the actual process, how we do it using AI, for doing research. And it's a process that mirrors, it's a light version, a lean version of a more robust research process. And it's one that really any organization, from a one person entrepreneur to a large organization, can follow. You define your goals, you define the criteria, you select your methodology, then execute. And all that's really saying is, know what you want your results, know what you want to find, know your parameters, then decide how you're going to approach it before you do it. And once you put it like that, it's pretty common sense, but you'd be surprised, and under the pressure of getting a lot of work done, your daily work life, you want something quickly, and a lot of complexities, how often even a seasoned person without having these rules in front of them will skip step 2 or step 3 and go right to step 4. And that's a recipe for having a bad research project and getting some bad insights. And this is just showing you the general AI landscape for research that we use, from topical research to qualitative, market, and analysis. Topical is really just typing into any generative AI, you know, hey, here's a question, give me the topical answer. Qualitative is getting more into it, and that's when you're actually putting a form in the field, a survey in the field, and then using AI to get the answers. It costs a little bit of money, anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 to do, but it's great to do. And the great thing is we used to do those 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and it used to take us, you know, 3 months or 2 months to do a complex one. Because you can use AI to give you insights as the answer comes in, and because the maturity of the field, the cost has gone down and the time has gone down. Topical is when you have the answer, when you have the question in front of you and you want ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, or Gemini to look at the existing data out there and tell you how it is crunching what it has seen. Qualitative is when you say, I have a question and I want you to ask people. I want to put a survey out there, or I want to do interviews. And I want to survey 500 people and ask them a certain set of questions and get that answer back and get those insights. What's fascinating is often when you pair qualitative and topical, those gives you extreme insights. Those are the type of things that if you're with a medium-sized business, for example, I recommend you do that once every 6 months at least. But like I said, the beauty of it is before AI, you're lucky to do that once a year. Now with AI, if you really wanted to, you can easily do it once a month. You could do it always on if you wanted to. Market research is using the AIs like in SEMrush and Pecan. And what those do is they go out there, they actively track, for an example, the share of voice your competitors have, people or anybody has in the place, what they're talking about, the sentiments around them, and it crunches all that data for you and gives you reports on it. So it lets you see what's happening in the market. And then for analysis, this is up for debate a little bit. Everybody has their opinions. As Francis says, it's kind of a Coke versus Pepsi thing. For analysis, Duet is an AI that is designed just for analysis. There's no question that that is one that if you want to do a lot of analysis, you should look into. We prefer Gemini and Claude for analysis. I'll speak to you for 1 minute why I prefer Gemini, and then I'll let Francis speak to Claude. But the reason why I prefer Gemini is its answers are not as broad often as ChatGPT's are. But the reason why I prefer Gemini is Google's AI. Google uses a relevancy score. They have for the last 15 years to try to weed out the bad, if a website or if the content on the website is relevant to a question being asked in search. They have ported that over into Gemini to an extent. So Gemini has an extra layer of trying to figure out, is this actually relevant? They have a hand up in that poisoned argument, that poisoned data problem that no one else has right now. That is why I prefer Gemini. But like I said, because of that, Gemini also gives you not as expansive answers. It's a little more narrowed in focus because of that. That's why I say always use two at the same time. Francis loves Claude.
Yeah, well, and our latest research projects, I utilize ChatGPT 4, specifically the paid version, dabbled with Perplexity. Perplexity is very interesting in that it really is great in terms of delivering sources. And then Claude was where, for this particular research project, was the mecca, because I had to take over 15 companies that we were comparing for market entry. And the only one I found that could handle the types of questions and the output that was needed and in a humanistic way with measuring data was Claude in this particular scenario. So it's really interesting to hear how everybody hits roadblocks. And it really, I think you need to find that particular solution that's going to work for your project. And that's why we suggest, A, you want to use multiples just to have like validation, and B, which one is just going to give you the answers that work best for your particular research project. So it is going to be a bit customized depending on your projects and needs.
And I would say, to back that up, if you're going to be doing a decent amount of research, have a paid account for Claude and have a paid account for ChatGPT 4 and try using Gemini and ask the same questions at the start of your project to each one, because you might find for different types of research, different ones are better. And
yeah, so everybody knows in this particular, again, I don't know, there's a lot of folks on the phone, so I don't know what the scale of your research projects were. In this particular case, our project was going to legal team. And so we needed to cross everything had to be like, T's crossed, I's dotted across so these are actually all the, everything that we used in order to formulate a response into this particular project.
Mhm.
And Ryan delved more into the qualitative market analysis. I stayed more on the topical, and then we'll show you later down the road how we merged all that information together.
And one difference is, well, first of all, I'm sure ChatGPT, there's a difference between ChatGPT 3 and 4. One of the main differences, just to level set, is that ChatGPT 3 cuts off in now I believe it's cutting off in February of 2023. It was up until very recently cutting off in 2022. ChatGPT 4, which is the paid version, is current to date. So that's just why we specify ChatGPT 4 versus ChatGPT 3. And one thing to know also is there's one of the big differences between the platform is how they cite the results and where it comes from. If you want to do more research, Perplexity does probably the best job of citing where all of the research that they're pulling comes from. Ironically, though, it's also the platform that I like the least. And then ChatGPT 4 and Claude does a pretty good job. Gemini, it does also a very good job of citing the research, the sources of where it comes from. And that depends on if that's important for you to know the sources of where the answers that they're giving you is pulling from. Gemini and Perplexity are the best. ChatGPT and Claude are the second best for that. All question of what is important for your need in that project. And this is just a really quick one. Like I said, 3 years ago, it used to be 1 part researcher, 2 part statistician, and 1/2 part marketer if you're doing marketing and market research. It's changed. You want to be 1 part researcher, only a 1/2 part statistician, because you need to have a basic understanding of that, but the AIs will do the work for you. It's now more important to be more of a marketer, but now it's also important to be 1 part creative writer and 1 part captain of the debate club. In order to get great research, it's not just asking, you are actually debating with the AI to an extent on why did you give me this information? What was the point? So it's important that you put these hats on. And I've said this in multiple talks. It used to be a joke, never go to school for humanities, you'll never get a job. Guess what? Those humanities people are laughing at you over these next 5 years because now they have a lot of relevance. And now we're going to get into the nitty gritty, but we follow the rule of 3. And I've said this a few times. You have 3 research paths, 2 AIs, 1 person is what we prefer, but make sure you'll always have 3 different research paths. If you're asking for the same result, use 3 different prompts to try to get to the same result. And always try to generate 3 different insights. The reason for this is this keeps it honest. This keeps the chance for bias on your part and hallucinations on the AI's part down to a minimum. This is what we found. It's just a simple rule of 3. And our other framework is we use a DCD framework: definition, context, and develop. Define everything. Don't let the AIs will love to define things for you. Make sure you define it. We keep glossaries handy so that we can actually put in there the definition and saying, hey, you're throwing out this term. Please define this term. Here's the definition that we're using. Or if you're going to go out there and do a gap analysis, here is our definition of gap analysis. Now, please perform a gap analysis on these 3 brands in the context of. So definition is very important. And we actually have a few glossaries. We're more than happy to share them to you. If you want one, just put your email and put glossary to the chat. We're more happy to share our marketing and research glossaries with you. And then this is what Francis is going to be talking about, is you have to actually develop the conversation and develop the AI to get an answer out of it. You just can't ask it 2 or 3 questions and expect the answer. It sometimes takes days to develop a good research question. within within AI.
Cool. So we're going to go into paired perspective analysis. And if we could go to the next slide, Ryan, just so you know, we are not prompt engineers. We're not in computer science. That is not our world. We are experts, we are thinkers, we are observers, we are visionaries. We are the human. And in order for any research project that you're working on, the critical piece is that you're bringing to the table what your understanding is of what are the needs, and then pairing that with what you're trying to find, correct? And the answers that you're looking for. If you can go to the next slide. So paired perspective analysis is very simply, it's just a combination of AI and us working together. So when we do the research project, the slide that Ryan showed earlier of all the different solutions that we were working, we did an analysis of on the human side, we were working with Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Claude to ask questions and work through it, and then we actually provided the responses, both what the AI feedback was in addition to like the human feedback, and we'll share that down the road. If you can go to the next slide, Ryan. So this is really critical in this process, that we're combining all our strengths. So AI is going to do all the processing. You have us. I think we've gone through this quite a bit. And we're going to have an iterative feedback loop. This is the critical piece. And I think this is what people don't really understand about AI. It's still a lot of work. There's this assumption that you're going to just input a question and you're going to get the actual answer that you want back. That is not the case. It is an iterative process, and it is your job to keep pushing to get the correct answer, and to also assure that it is the correct answer as well. And that it is the critical piece of any research project is that at the beginning, you're feeding into whichever solution you're going to use the questions and the information that it needs. So I think for this particular project, we probably spent a few days just fully comprehending what it is the needs were, gathering all the information, understanding the definitions of words. And that's something actually with, you can use the ChatGPT, is like, are there certain terms that are newer to us that we didn't fully understand that maybe the client wants, that is very specific to their market needs, and really making sure that we understood so that we were pushing the answers. So the fact of the matter is that there is a lot of human research regardless, but we can definitely use AI to get to the answer too. So this is the $1 million slide. The truth is we have to work together, and it starts with you. You have to know what you're looking for. You can't necessarily accept the output. There were multiple times that even something as basic as, I think there was one particular case where I said like, hey, when was the start of this company, for example? ChatGPT came back with a specific answer, and separately, I was researching and digging in through Google as well, and I found a press release. And then I actually took the press release that gave me more information about where the start of this X company, because it was really critical because we were looking into market entry, and I fed that information into ChatGPT. I had actually started my journey with ChatGPT 4. And it was able to give me some base solutions. But when it came to the point of having to do a comparison in terms of like 15, 20 different companies, ChatGPT sort of hit a wall and was not able to verify information. I wasn't able to ask it like, hey, can you look at these 15 companies and give me X answer for these particular things? So I went on this journey of starting with ChatGPT 4, then going to Perplexity, and then going to Claude. And here, this is really funny. I just wanted to share this. So I suggest that you always have 3 available, 2 or 3, looking at what the responses is, because then you're going to start to have an understanding of how you do like to receive answers, and how you're going to want to know like, oh, okay, you're going to, and again, I don't know, probably all of you, a lot of you already have like who your favorites are, but now I know that for ChatGPT-4, if I kind of just need a sentence fixed or something like that, I'm usually going to go to ChatGPT-4. For Perplexity, I'm usually, if I need like to find the sources, etc., I'm going to hit Perplexity, and I'm really curious about that information. And Claude, like I said, for this particular, this particular scenario, I don't know with our next project if Claude will be my go-to, but Claude gave me really balanced solutions and was able to really synthesize and really problem solving and able to provide information and really like large masses of information. And I'm sure, as you all know, when you start a project and a question, it's very important that you just stay in the same stream, because the AI is going to always be able to relate back to the information that's within your initial question. So when I started this project, we have like, I don't know how many, how long that stream is of information of going back and forth, of asking questions. And I can literally today ask it to go back months ago and say, hey, Claude, can you pull X information for me? And it will. So it's better to keep, I suggest it's better to keep one question open specific to a project.
And just one note on that is, every platform has them. Learn the quick hacks for the platform for saving and organizing the streams. ChatGPT is a little bit better at that, where now 4 allows you to save your streams and folders.
Yeah, and really quickly, so this is what's funny. So this is my question. Hey, and this was just ChatGPT. You guys can all, if you want, like I said, it's really fun to just, fun, but it's fun to go test and see the answers that each one gives you back. But this was the response to what's the difference between ChatGPT-4, Perplexity, and Claude. This was the initial question. Then if you can go to the next slide. Then my next follow-up was, let's humanize this. So see how different the response is. It's in ChatGPT-4, it's like, think of ChatGPT 3.5 as a smart friend who's really good at trivia and can chat about almost anything. Perplexity is like that buddy who's a stickler for details and always has the facts to back up your stories. And then Claude, imagine Claude is the wise, considerate friend who thinks before they speak, always aiming to have the right thing in the right way. It's really, that's where I'm saying that, again, you're the expert in what you're working on in your field and the projects that you're working on. And it's going to be critical for you to really push the envelope in terms of the tone, the responses, the perspective that you want to get from the responses. And that's why I say you're not a prompt engineer. It's really, you have to take your expertise, your vision, and really push the elements. And that's why we truly believe that research is hand in hand. It's not just AI, and the human is critical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just really quick, because I know we're going to come down to the hour. So this is really basic, the simplicity of the conversations that I was having with Claude for this massive project that was going to a legal department for kind of test that it became very friendly. Like I was really like almost like a co-team member to be able to get this information. So how it started. So we just wanted to give you an example. My initial question from the get, which was with ChatGPT-4, I started with ChatGPT-4, was research X, vertical, insert vertical or type of business companies located in Y. So this is how basic the first initial question can go. And like I said, you are going to have to create what are the parameters, or, if you're working with X company that's working with you to get some research, they should be providing you parameters of what are they seeking, or if not, you need to create with a friendly back and forth of, hey, let's look at all the competitors that exist and let's start crafting that list. And then over the course of time, it was started from a small list to a very large list. And then again, based on your research, you need to, what the goals of your project are, you need to have the determining factors. Are the determining factors for you do we want all the sizes of the companies to be, 1 to 50 employees, 1 to 500 employees. And again, this is just one very specific example. You can apply it across whatever field you're in.
And I just want to add one note to what Francis is saying. You see here where it says, hey, Claude, I'm uploading 2 CSVs. We just don't let any of the AIs just provide you with the data. One great way that Francis created the context was she said, these are my most important companies to compare against. These are the market parameters that we know. Here are the attributes and the features that are important to us. She gave it the context in a CSV that could be used in 2 CSVs and all these other parameters for Claude to start thinking around and comparing all the all the other companies against it. So that was a key element that Francis did to create that context.
Right. So I know in a lot of, and I know there's a lot of out there in terms of like, hey, this prompt works for, you know, and especially in marketing, they're just like, you got to use this prompt for X. And in research, it's not necessarily, you know, there is the obviously X and Y variables and the initial questions, but it takes more of a human tone and really just like pushing the envelope. So yeah, these are great examples of, can you assess if this was done in consideration of best services specific to country or globally? So we were looking at like, what is something specific locally or globally? These are questions you can ask. Basic stuff. We ran into a lot of that there were missing fields, and and what happens is that the AI might actually run out of like not fully answer your question. So if I'm asking like, hey, can you give me a comparative analysis of X and Y and over 20 companies that it's comparing, sometimes it will stop null at like 10 or 15 companies, and you have to keep pushing it to like make sure you know, you finish all the review and comparative analysis, or they might have missed some of the information. So that's why it's really critical to keep reviewing what is being outputted. Favorite one, this is where the mecca was. Hi, Claude. This is after we had days and days of going back and forth in terms of information. I asked Claude, this is the first on your left, after synthesizing all the research and questions from the start of this thread, please provide the 5 insights based on the product comparison of leading insert service, offering businesses insert locally, to satisfy regulators in X country, to consider a new incoming company has something unique to offer. This was the mecca where it was able to synthesize all the information from days and weeks. Well, you know, this is a project that probably in the past would have taken 2 months or plus. We synthesized this in about 10 days flat. And so based on all the information, it was able to provide me insights. And then based on what I was learning from it and what I knew from market entry, we were able to craft an amazing research and analysis back to our client. And again, it wasn't just Claude providing this. It was because of the information we were feeding it. It was because of the information we were pushing it.
In a nutshell, all of our down and dirty tricks and steps to achieve it. Train the AI, you know, ask questions you already know. That's a great way to start. Ask questions you already know and repeat your existing research to start off with, to train it and make sure that it's the right AI to use. Define the methodology you want. You have to be precise with the AI. Don't let the AI control the terms and the definitions. You need to control it. It's a little bit of a wrestling match. We like to train a GPT for each client. We will actively go out there for each client and train GPTs just to help us with our daily tasks and to get it going. And then we train a GPT. I will often train a GPT for each client and train it for each of the client's ICPs and personas. I have four GPTs for a client, all trained on 4 different personas. You know, think of it as taking as somebody from first grade to college, as you're feeding as Francis was talking about, feeding the AI, using that glossary, you know, and these are important things. Screen record and save all your prompts. You have no idea how important that is and how often that simple rule is forgotten. Everything needs to be repeatable. And you want to go back and you want to be able to see how a prompt has changed over time and the answers changed over time. As trick is to alternate between complex prompts with simple. It's kind of funny how a complex prompt trains the context, then throw in a simple prompt. and see what the answer is, and to get that broad strokes. It's surprising the insights that you can be that can be driven by alternating complex with simple prompts. And like I said, reuse the prompts over time. AI learns with your context and evolves. You know, save the threads, do it again and again. You know, do the same prompts. It's great to do the same research for 4 months in a row. Call it always on, and the insights develop over time.
Thank you so much. And we really appreciate everyone's time. Again, thank you.
Thank you.